Sometimes emotional exhaustion does not feel dramatic. It does not always look like crying or breaking down. Sometimes it feels much quieter than that. You wake up tired. You move through the day tired. And even small things begin to feel heavy. Messages feel difficult to answer. Conversations feel exhausting. Even thinking can feel like too much. And after a while, you stop asking yourself what is wrong, because you already know you are exhausted. Not only physically, emotionally, deeply emotionally tired. The kind of tiredness that sleep does not fully fix. The kind that slowly builds after carrying too much for too long. Too many thoughts. Too many worries. Too many emotions with nowhere to go. And eventually, your mind stops reacting the same way it used to. Things that once mattered deeply begin to feel distant. Even joy feels quieter now. Not gone completely, just far away, like something you cannot fully reach anymore. And sometimes that scares you because you remember being more alive than this, more present, more connected, more able to feel things fully. But now, it is almost like your emotions became too tired to keep speaking loudly. So instead, everything turns quiet. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet. You keep functioning. You keep answering people. You keep doing what needs to be done. But inside, you feel emotionally far away from yourself. And one of the hardest parts is that other people do not always notice it. Because from the outside, you still look normal. You still show up. You still speak. You still continue. But inside, you are tired in a way that is difficult to explain. And maybe lately, you have stopped asking for support. Not because you do not need it, but because you no longer have energy to explain how heavy everything feels. And if this is where you are right now, there is nothing wrong with you. You are not lazy. You are not weak. And you are not failing at life. Your mind and your heart have simply been carrying too much for too long without real rest. And maybe right now, more than anything else, what you need is not pressure, not motivation, not another thing to fix, but a moment where you can finally stop carrying everything all at once. And after a while, you stop expecting yourself to feel normal again overnight. because this kind of exhaustion does not disappear after one good night of sleep. It stays quietly in the background of everything, even during calm moments, even during days that are supposed to feel easy. You try to rest, but your mind still feels heavy. You try to disconnect, but something inside you still feels tense. And sometimes you begin to wonder if you will ever feel fully alive again. Not because you want a perfect life, not because you expect happiness all the time, but because you miss the version of yourself that could actually feel things without becoming exhausted by them. You miss laughing without forcing it. You miss feeling excited about small things. You miss having energy for people you love. And maybe the hardest part is that you cannot fully explain this feeling to others. Because from the outside, nothing looks completely wrong. Your life continues. The days continue. Everything keeps moving. But inside, it feels like your emotional energy has been stretched too thin for too long. And eventually, your mind stops trying to feel everything deeply. Not because it does not care, but because it no longer knows how to carry this much without shutting down. And if this is where you are right now, you do not need to hate yourself for it. You do not need to feel guilty for being emotionally tired. Anyone who carries too much for too long eventually becomes exhausted. And maybe lately, you have been surviving more than living, just trying to get through the day, just trying to keep functioning, just trying to hold yourself together without falling apart completely. And that takes more strength than most people realize. So maybe right now, your heart does not need pressure. Maybe it does not need more expectations. Maybe it simply needs a little space to breathe again. Not to become perfect, not to become productive again. Just to slowly remember what it feels like to be human without carrying the entire world inside your chest. And after carrying that weight for such a long time, something inside you slowly begins to change. Not only emotionally, but in the way you experience yourself. And maybe lately, you have started feeling unfamiliar to yourself. Not completely different, just quieter inside. Like something in you slowly faded without you noticing exactly when it happened. You remember being more present. more emotionally awake, more connected to small moments. But now, even things that once brought comfort do not reach you the same way. Not because they stopped mattering, but because your emotional energy has been running low for too long. And after a while, your mind stops reacting with the same intensity. Not to protect happiness, to protect survival. Because feeling everything deeply for too long becomes exhausting. So your system begins lowering the volume on everything. Joy becomes quieter. Excitement becomes shorter. Even sadness changes shape. It no longer feels sharp. It just stays there in the background. Heavy. Constant. Emotionally exhausting. And one of the loneliest parts is that you may begin wondering if this is simply who you are now. If maybe you will never fully come back to yourself again. But emotional exhaustion has a way of convincing people that temporary feelings are permanent truths. And they are not the same thing. The version of you that felt alive, connected, and emotionally open did not disappear. That part of you is still there. It is simply buried under too much pressure, too much thinking, too much carrying, and too little rest. And maybe right now, your heart does not need another expectation. Maybe it does not need another reason to feel guilty for being tired. Maybe what you truly need is permission to stop fighting yourself for a moment. To stop demanding that you immediately become the old version of yourself again. Because healing from exhaustion is rarely dramatic. It happens slowly, quietly, one small breath at a time. And even now, under all this heaviness, your heart is still trying to come back to life. You do not need to suddenly become positive. You do not need to fix your entire life tonight. Because emotional exhaustion is not healed through pressure. It begins healing the moment you stop treating yourself like a problem that must constantly be repaired. You have been carrying so much inside yourself. So many thoughts you never fully rested from. So many emotions you kept pushing through because life continued moving even when you were tired. And after a while, your mind learned to survive by staying tense, always preparing, always thinking, always carrying something emotionally heavy inside your chest. But right now, for these few moments, you do not need to carry everything at once. You are allowed to put some of the weight down. Not forever, just long enough to breathe again. And maybe your heart does not need perfect answers right now. Maybe it simply needs a little softness, a little quiet, a little kindness from the person who has been hardest on you for the longest time. Yourself. Because emotional exhaustion becomes even heavier when every tired feeling is followed by guilt. Guilt for not doing enough. Guilt for feeling disconnected. Guilt for needing rest. But needing rest does not make you weak. It makes you human. And slowly, very slowly, your nervous system can begin learning that it no longer has to stay in survival mode all the time. Not everything needs to be solved tonight. Not every fear needs an answer right now. And not every part of your life needs to be figured out before you allow yourself to breathe. So for this moment, let your shoulders soften. Let your breathing slow down. Let your thoughts become quieter without forcing them away. You have been strong for a very long time. And maybe now, more than anything else, your heart simply needs a little peace.